we just have to admire. We're in the middle of Europe, millions of people around, and there is these Alps, and there are multiple glacial landing spots in the middle of one of the densest populated area on this planet. And I mean, I go down to the airfield, and 25 minutes later, I'm at 3,000 meters, no cell phone reception, and you're completely off the grid.
Well. Good day and welcome everyone to episode number 1 of the Stoll Collective. I'm your host, Maxime Compagnon. TSC is all about backcountry, mountain and stall flying. I love it. Who wouldn't? Do you love it as much as I do? Well, if that's the case, please tell your friends about it, share on your social platforms and write a review on Apple Podcast. If you want to contact me, my email is contact@thestollcollective.com, or you can follow me on Instagram and send me a message at thestollcollective. If you've been around the Swiss and international snowboard scene for the past 30 years, but also in what we love to talk about, mountain flying, especially in the Alps, you've for sure heard about Mister Roland Primus. Apart from being a legend in the snowboarding industry in Europe, Roland is a true aviation enthusiast, already from a very young age. He is also an award-winning aerobatic pilot and counts camping, windsurfing, surfing, fishing and trekking, especially in the Arctic, amongst his favorite hobbies. But now folks, let's land on the immaculate snow of the Piz-Palu Glacier at 13,000 feet and dive into the passion-driven life of Roland, joining us in the Stoll Collective. Welcome from Bavaria to Switzerland, and today we have Roland Primus with us, and at the first episode of the Stoll Collective. So Roland, hi.
Hi, Maxime.
It's good to have you with us. How has
It's a pleasure
been?
being with you.
Thanks. How has been flying this summer? Have you been backcountry flying, or did you have some possibilities on glaciers already?
The summer, no, I don't have the skis on the plane. So in the summers, I have the wheeled 26-inch bush wheel on it, the ultralight ones. And but this summer was a little bit slow going in terms of flying because of also a lot of countries being restricted, first of all, due to the coronavirus. And then time just didn't kick in. I was in the mountains a lot, but a few flights, yes, but not major project like in the last years.
We will definitely come back to these projects in that episode, and I'm pretty sure we will need some other ones because we have a very good friend in common and who's unfortunately passed away, and we definitely need to talk together about him. And I think about you if I think about him, so you're the best person to talk about him, definitely. So let's jump a little back, and could you please tell us how you started flying, because this is what we are interested about, and especially about backcountry flying and your mountain flying. You're flying a lot in the mountains. Obviously, you live in Switzerland in a very high mountain region, and I'm sure you can explain us how did it start for you.
Yeah, mountain flying actually came in on another route. First of all, I was as a young kid, I wanted to become either a lumberjack or helicopter pilot. That was my dream. So lumberjack or helicopter pilot. So then with 13 years old, they sent you to these guys, who analyze you. You put some things together and they want to predict what you're going to be in life later on. So yeah, my wish to become a helicopter pilot was then transferred to become a mechanic. The idea was, let's get that kid first doing a mechanic, and then you can always switch over to become a helicopter mechanic, and then if you like it, you can become a pilot. So that was the idea. So wishing of flying was with me very early. I started making some parachutes out of napkins, bed sheets, and jumped over a little hill and stuff like that. So, yeah, at the end of the day, I did actually do my mechanical engineering.
Uh-huh.
And then, as soon as I had my first money in hand, I started flying while I was also teaching skiing. So, being a ski instructor in the winter, full time on, worked 3 jobs, uh, driving a cab at night until 2 o'clock in the morning. Then did the ambulance service from 2 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock in the morning. So could sleep beside the ambulance when there was a call. I had to get the doctor, go with the ambulance, and then 9:30 I started ski lessons again.
Wow.
So that's how I put the money together then to start flying. I did my license and everything with 20, and then I was running out of money, and snowboarding was taking over, and I jumped full on snowboarding competition, founded the oldest snowboard school in the world, and get into that stuff.
This was around mid-end of the 80s, right? If I remember correctly.
Yes, that was actually 82, 83, when I recall right in my logbook, the first flights, summer 83. Yeah.
Okay, it's when I was born. And so you started to get really involved in snowboarding, because I'm also personally very interested in that, because I'm snowboarder too for quite some time. Of course,
Hmm.
not like you,
Yeah.
but it's more like 92. But
Hmm.
yes, please go on. I think it's a good transition. So about the your snowboard activities, because it's very important.
Yeah, basically, I started snowboarding after I was coming back from a long windsurfing trip. There was when I was ski instructing in the winter. I started that when I was 19, so that's 82. First started going on the snowboard, kind of a snowboard. We built our own and so on with leather boots and strap on with leather straps and stuff like that. And then I thought going back into a job, I didn't really like it. So I thought, why not open up a snowboard school? So I did open up a snowboard school and worked two snowboard school, one in Lenzerheide, I still have, and one in Laax. I sold later on to the ski school over there. And then it started, and the meanwhile, I was going to the World Championship, the first one in St. Moritz, did really good there. Got straight away a sponsorship with Burton and continued to competing for Burton for 7 years. So did the World Cup by side, did the school at home, and at the end I had just to take a decision, and I went on with schooling because in the meantime we also formed the Snowboard Association in Switzerland. We've been 14 people as first member, or 12, and then I started the Snowboard Formation Association. So I fully dig into the passing the passion of snowboarding over. That was really a satisfying thing. And after a few years, then I stopped the competition, because if you're teaching and you're making competition, something has to give, and you kind of make a beautiful, nice turn in a competition that's not really going to work. So, yeah, so that's flying still been my passion all the time, but I didn't have the funds, going around the World Cup and raising the school and everything. So I was paragliding a
Okay,
lot.
because I think we forgot to notify to that I assume, and I'm pretty sure you were flying certified aircraft. So we are talking about PPL license and certified
Absolutely.
aircraft, because
Yeah, yeah.
we will talk about that later. I have to ask you because I don't remember, but light sport aircraft. So in Europe we say ultralight aircrafts. So have been introduced or reintroduced maybe in Switzerland just a few years ago. So we'll come back to that. But so you were flying certified aircrafts.
Yeah, still do these days. And I think there is, this aviation is really interesting. And what's in my possibility financially, I try to get a hand on. So, yeah, but that's interesting. And I think I did a lot of flying with general aviation, classic, teached in Cessnas. Then the whole snowboarding career came, and back in when I was about 38 or something, then I restarted flying. I had the founds, the school was going good and everything. So I redid my pilot's license again because it was expired.
Okay.
So I had to do that again. That was okay. Great teacher. I'm very happy that I had that teacher at this time. That was a really gift for me. I learned it the proper way.
Around which place of Switzerland already?
That is in Bad Ragaz. That's my home airfield now in Bad Ragaz. It's in
Yes.
that's about 40 minutes from where I live. Yeah, and that was cool. Restarted it and then really get the hang out of it. So it really took me in. Started to doing flying around Europe. What we mainly did after 1.5 year, I started to look around for planes because I was flying in a group, and that was quite difficult then to get the hand on the plane, and you wanted to go for a 2 week trip. They wanted to bring you back a lot of hours, like 4 hours a day. Otherwise, they were not satisfied. So I knew I need a plane. So we bought the Cessna 177 RG,
Ah,
also known as Cessna Cardinals.
yes.
And that was, he was not worth flying. He didn't have an airworthiness certification at that time. And the mechanic from the place came with and said, look, you have to invest a little bit, but it is a good buy. So we bought that plane. I mean, I looked all over what kind of plane can we land on grass strip and what kind of plane can we put the surfboard in. That was important for me. And what does a decent speed with decent fuel? So instead of a lot of people looking at what kind of fuel you use per hours, I'm more the guy who looks how much fuel I need to fly 1,000 nautical miles, because that's what I'm interested in. If I fly
Yeah.
180 knots or 150, I don't care. The question is how much money it takes me to fly from A to B. So I think the Cessna Cardinal at the end of the day, for a general aviation aircraft, is one of the best you can get a hand on, taking that in equation with that economy, because it flies pretty fast and it doesn't use a lot of fuel. And you can hold a decent longboard in the back,
Oh,
which
really?
is really
Wow.
fun. Yeah,
So I should
yeah,
be very interested because my wife and I are longboarding too, so maybe in the future we
yeah,
should search for that.
yeah, because it's two screws. The back bench comes out really easily. And then you have the last section to get into the tail cone. You can I replaced that by a foam board where this longboard just stuck in,
Okay.
and that was it. Yeah.
Wow.
So really cool, and also the bikes went in, and so we toured Europe. We had many fantastic trips into the
Wow.
Scandinavian countries with the tent, sleeping somewhere on small airfields and stuff like that. So yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. So we loved that plane, flew it for 12 or 13 years
Oh,
all over
awesome.
Europe.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then basically the
It,
plane started to become more expensive,
yeah.
It's the maintenance on retractable gear and stuff like that was really bad. And it was funny. I was once reading a magazine while flying home from our little surf cottage up in Fehmarn. And it's about a 3.5 hours flight. So I was reading through a magazine a little bit while Claudia was scanning the area. Suddenly, a big bang, and we no more power.
Oh.
So
Okay.
we're cruising along there, and I think the engine decided to quit because I was reading about new engines. So yeah, and I looked on the GPS. What's the nearest airfield? Luckily, I was taught to always have to tune it in the nearest page. So it was straight away. There was one with quite a long runway.
Okay.
So switched over and said to Claude, hey, look up the frequency, please, on the charts. That was the days when we still flew with charts, not with iPads.
Yes.
And so she said, I can't find the bloody frequency. I said, yeah, just keep on looking, look. So I was talking to the controller and said, look, we have suddenly an issue. There is a problem, lost power, rattles a lot. I can't really put the power on. He said, yeah. And I said, I go into that field. He said, yeah, stand by. And I said, what the hell, stand by? Give me the bloody frequency. There's nothing to be standing by. I'm a glider. And he said, no worry, no worry. And then he came back, gave me the frequency, tuned in the frequency. He said, okay, wish you all the best. I said, yeah, otherwise I would declare an emergency. No, go over. Pan is enough. Go ahead. So I tuned in the frequency, switched over to the new frequency and announced my intentions. And then I knew why the frequency was not on the map.
Military or?
Yeah, the biggest military airfield from the US at these times in Germany, Giebelstadt. the biggest helicopter, with all the Chinooks and everything.
Yeah.
And so super professional, the guy in the tower.
They are.
I came in, he said, hey, Captain, please check 3 greens. And I thought, what the hell does he mean? 3 greens. And I realized then he mean put the gear down, Then eventually I realized and said to him, look, if I put the gear down now, I'm probably not going to make it because of drag. It will come out, I'm sure, but let me approach a little bit closer. And once I'm there, then I can make it. He said, okay, fine, everything. And we landed, both fire trucks left and right, ambulance on the side, absolutely professional. But then, Maxime, I don't tell you the paperwork.
Oh, yeah, I don't want to know.
Anyhow, that was the time when we met that fantastic shop, because the next time they flew in, checked there was a cylinder, swallowed the valve, and we were just about of losing the piston. So it was a good decision to go there because of loss of oil and everything. But then new engine and so on, continue flying in it. And then by the time in my career of flying, I thought I need a few more things to do. So as I become a technical director in snowboarding, I persuade myself for every year, Roland, you do a formation where you are a student and where you're going to do a license or an examen, so that you never lose connection how you students feel when they want to become snowboard instructors or ski instructors.
Awesome. Mm-hmm.
So I did all license, commercial pilot, IFR. I did it in England. I did it in Europe. I did it in the States. I did also some more flying. And then I thought, I want to know more. Mm-hmm. And I always had that feeling that flying, there was always this gray area. When they teach you flying, mm-hmm. they teach you to stay away of the stall. Okay.
Oh yeah.
They teach you how to recover it.
Yeah.
They do that. But you never feel really comfortable. And there is this, this envelope where you maneuver. Mm-hmm. You maneuver around that envelope, who is limited by 3.8 G, depending on the model and everything. Mm-hmm. But there is more behind that envelope.
I couldn't more agree.
And there is there isn't more to be used in a normal plane, because 3.8 G, it's the limit. But I don't only mean the G forces, I also mean the envelope of what you can do with a plane. What are the possibility? And fair enough, the limited time in an education to become a private pilot doesn't really allow you to discover that.
No.
And let's face the fact, there is nothing like an advanced course. And it might be a good thing. And I mean, also teaching ATPL pilots. I mean, you basically teach them to stay in a certain area where it's safe. And you see what happens if they stay outside that
Mm.
box. It's not really appealing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I want to know more. So I launched myself into aerobatics. And how to do that? We always wanted to construct the plane. We went Oshkosh multiple times,
Oh
and
wow.
I was nearly there to buy an RV.
Mm-hmm.
You
Four
know,
or
an RV seven.
seven? Seven. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, but then I came back to Switzerland, and I knew there was a guy in Switzerland, Max Vogelsang,
Mm-hmm.
who designed an aerobatic plane just recently. And I thought to myself, okay, let's give that a shot too. So we went down to Max, had an appointment with him, and they have a big carpenter company. You know, they do roof constructions and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really super good in woodwork, and they're probably number one address if you want to have a Booker restored. You know,
Wow.
because of their craftsmanship in woodwork.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down there and he showed me how the molds are and how they produce it. So, you know, with an engineering background and as a mechanic, I was stuck.
Oh, you fell in
And
love, huh?
then he said, okay, let's go flying. And that was it.
Ah.
Claudia went flying. I went flying. 3 days later, I called him up and I said, when can we start? He said, you can start straight away. Okay, let's make a deal. We didn't have the funds and we didn't want to pay the whole kit. We said, can we produce the kit ourselves in your molds and have less labor? He agreed on that. So we produced our own kit and also builded it. And the advantage was it was not a 2 weeks taxi program, but it was working in their store, in their fabric, and doing everything by our own. So it was not like he was completely there all the time. It was more like Monday morning,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like 2 hours briefing, and he put everything in my mind for 2 hours, and that was all the work I needed to do the whole week. It was a fantastic experience. We started a few weeks in September, and then we went to the winter season, went windsurfing, came back, rented an apartment, and in one summer, 2,873 hours, Claudia and me put in. And
Wow.
I have to give big credit to her. She was on the milling machine, she was doing everything. Just a little episode. You know, the little rips from the ailerons,
Mm-hmm.
they weighted 58 grams, varying between 58 and 68 grams. You know,
Yeah.
so Claudia started one, it was 48 grams. Then she went to Max and said, can I do it like this and this? He said, yes, that's possible. She went down to 40, 42 grams.
Well, that's
And she did
crazy.
38 rips or 32, however there was, in between 2, 3 grams, you know? And that's what, when we were hooked on, we
Mm.
tried to make the most beautiful and lightest water there was. That was the goal.
Wow.
And 10th of October, before the winter season, was first flight. I launched myself into that, did test flying and so on. Unfortunately, I glazed the cylinder walls
Oh.
by the taxi program, so I had to rehome the cylinders. But next spring, uh, the final paper came in. You know, we had the 40 hours test flight program to do and everything. And the paper came in on a Saturday morning, you know, and I went to the post office. It's the paper here, it's the paper here, you know, shouting in the room. They weren't even open yet. They said, yeah, go and look, Roland. Wait. Yeah, there is a letter here. Took the letter, run home, went in the car, went down to the
Straight.
airfield, and now I could go away and straight to the first competition. Hamilton local competition, you know, Hamilton Trophy Cup.
Uh-huh.
Went to the competition, went in, became first.
Wow.
So that was a really bummer. That was really cool.
Well, that's a
Uh,
legendary story.
yeah, but I have to tell it's in sportsman category,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because the daughter of Max, who was about the same age as me, a little bit younger,
Mm-hmm.
gifted pilot as well as a son, super both high level, unlimited pilots. And she taught me while I was building the plane.
Ah, well, okay.
So she taught me aerobatic flying while I was on building the
On
plane. So the connection was super. I was so well connected with her in terms of confidence and what she did. She didn't have experience in teaching, but my background as a technical director and teaching people and competitors since 20 years, I could take out so much of her. And she was absolutely not afraid of giving everything out, and being. We had a really super relationship. It was fantastic. She was sitting in front, I'm in the back. She said, "Look, I show you, I explain what I can, but you figure it out how you want to do that."
I was going to ask you on what kind of aircraft, and you said she in the front and you in the back, so it's kind of an
It
it
was
was an
it
extra.
was the same plane
Ah,
we built it. We
okay.
took one of their ones. They have a monoplane, but mostly they're two-seaters. And I have to say, at this time, it was probably the most powerful two-seater aircraft there was for
Oh,
aerobatics.
oh,
At this time, you still could fly, not on a world level, but on a regional or a national level, you still could fly an unlimited program with that machine.
well,
It was once in the hand of her brother, Urs is his name, a gifted freestyle pilot, absolutely stunning performance. I was scotched to the ground when I saw my plane in the air flying with him.
uh,
And he said it's flying like a Mono 1
well,
because we really put it very light. We
mm,
were really gifted. And we had a great engine, a Barrett engine, fantastic. Put out about 320, 330 real horsepower, not like
yeah.
made up. And that was a really cool plane. So, yeah, it was great. And then I started flying competition for 6 years. I was really lucky because I always ended up on the podium in all my competition.
And
But
you were pardon, you were fully dedicated during that time to aerobatic mostly. So you were not. It was your
I
full
sold the
focus.
Cardinal.
Mm-hmm.
We sold the Cardinal. And at that time, we only had the aerobatic plane. So I was fully into to this. We still use the aerobatic plane to fly some trekking trips. Try to imagine we flew that aerobatic plane from Switzerland to nearly the North Cape in Norway. We flew up to Kiruna.
Nobody's
It's
doing that.
bloody, yeah, it's bloody 1400 nautical.
Well,
It's
yeah.
crazy, and it was the only time in my life when I was when we came back for that 2 weeks trekking trip out in the nature in the mountains there. I was so exhausted, and I know now I have to do a 4 hours flight in that machine. And try to imagine it's like you're coming back from a big trip and you have to sit into a Formula One car to go for
Yeah.
coffee. You're
Well,
just not going to do it.
no.
But yeah, but anyhow, it was really cool, that plane flying around with Claudia, and that was really fascinating for me in flying because it opened up that envelope. And that plane had plus minus 10 Gs. The main spar was tested up to 26 tons.
Well,
26 tons. It was a wooden spar and carbon wings. It was a very nice match, and the wooden spar gave you that nice feeling of not like a carbon spar, who is much more rigid, and it was super cool plane.
mm,
And but when you start the first time in your life to fly backwards,
yeah.
zero angle of attack flying backwards, when spinning a plane becomes a pleasure. When
Mm-hmm.
spinning inverted becomes even more a pleasure. When you look forward to your next Lomchawak, it's just, then I discovered really the whole envelope,
Yeah.
because you're gonna kill yourself or passing out before that machine is even thinking about having a problem.
Yes.
And so this was a great thing. But I have to say, honestly, I was at my 40s, and I couldn't do it before because I'm too much a competitive person, and too much going full on. And I was happy that I went into that, and I went in lately because I was a little bit more mature. And I have to say that that was important, especially for my character, to be a little bit more mature in these kind of areas and not to kill yourself by doing some stupid things. Because it goes quick when you approach the ground with like 220 nautical vertical, and you pull off like 300 feet above ground or even lower. You need to be pretty know what you're doing.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I totally
yeah,
agree. Although I
yeah.
only have a glider aerobatic small
Oh,
background and
cool.
like 2 weeks formation in the south of France already quite maybe 15 years ago now. But
Hmm.
it was the best I could do as well. Definitely. I thought I
Hmm.
cannot more agree with you. So of course your
Yeah,
background is
yeah,
way bigger, but knowing the whole envelope is the most important thing. And in all, I wanted to say in what we do. So currently, because we talk about backcountry and mountain flying and stall, but I would recommend it to anybody flying an airplane should have at least a few aerobatic flights to just get to know the envelope and not be afraid as soon as you come to a stall or whatever, or let's say non-standard position.
yeah. I have a big discussion sometimes also with Tom about this, and I have to say I agree with certain concerns. Because let's face the fact, when you discover uh, the envelope further on, you need to be 100% confident that you'd be able to recover from everything. And getting into a stall and getting out of a stall and being confident with that is a great thing. But you're pushing the envelope further. So I think only a few hours aerobatic doesn't really do you any good if
No.
you're not 100% confident to recover from every position you are.
Yes.
So, and that's why I think to push to do a little bit of aerobatics, nah, I'm not 100% sure if that's the right move. Because what we also see sometimes, and I don't understand that, is that people with a normal certified aircraft, probably utility category, going up to 4 or 5 Gs, uh, pulling into a loop or
Mm.
doing a barrel roll or stuff like that. I mean, when you train your program and you become better, you go from beginner to sportsman to intermediate to advanced to ultimate. And every time you realize when you make a step further, shit, I lost the plane, or I just, I wasn't on it. I recover it, but I wasn't on the ball. And when I think, and I see sometimes these people go off and you see them doing stuff, I just think, hey guys, do you know how quick you can pull 7 Gs or eight? It's not like it doesn't take a lot.
No.
It just take one fraction of a second where you are afraid and you pull out and you're up to 6 Gs. I mean, 5, 6 Gs is nothing you put on with in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, especially with standard certified aircraft or whatever, they have way more weight, so they accelerate faster. So I mean, on our ultralight, that would be a bit more difficult, I assume. But
It's
still,
just a matter
it's
of
a
an
matter.
ultralight. It's just a matter of
Mm,
how quick you pull the stick
yes.
back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
True.
very easy.
Yeah.
It's very easy. Huh? As quicker you pull it back, as more G you load.
Mm.
Uh, and as well, especially with the stall, we have high lifting wings. So the wing will grab even more. It's not like an aerobatic plane where the wing is basically completely symmetric.
Yes.
There is not a lot of lift generated. It's all only by the angle of attack, basically, but not by the profile itself. So with a stall plane, you can as well go over your limits pretty quick. Huh?
Mm.
Yeah. So okay, the whole surfaces to guide it is a little bit slower and everything, but yeah. No, that was my background, and it helped tremendously. It helped tremendously. That's for sure. Yeah.
And all the time, you had these huge, beautiful mountains you know very well because of your
Mhm.
snowboarding background. And I'm not going to say you're avoiding them in your, let's say, flying activities, but it's not like you are into them, obviously landing on them yet. How when
Not
how
with
that
planes.
not with the plane,
Not
yeah.
not with the plane. I did fly a lot with the paragliding. So I did passenger flights. So in the winter, in the summer, with the skis and everything. Uh, but then when the competition flying became more expensive, more training, going international, and then I thought, okay, do I really want to do that? And just at this time, a guy approached me and said, "Whenever you sell that plane, I'm in for buying it." And I say, "Okay, look, now let's be serious. Don't put the bug in my ear and then just step away. If you want to buy it, you give me a price, and I say yes or no." So he put the price down, and I was talking to Claudia, and we couldn't resist
Oh,
because when you can sell an experimental for more than the building material is, and so on. Yeah, it's a good way. I miss it. I probably shouldn't sell it, but I miss it sometimes. But it was great. It's in good hands. He loves it. He flies it a lot. And my decision was to give up competition anyway.
okay.
So because I wanted to go flying the glaciers.
Ah,
Yeah. Because eventually, with Switzerland and aerobatics, every time I landed, there was a complaint. This
really?
guy called up, this guy called up. Yeah, I mean, the airbase is in a valley, and it's pretty loud. And I even restricted myself to 8:30 to 11:30 afternoon, from 2 to 5, not on the weekend and
Hmm.
everything. But unfortunately, there was a very, very old clause in the contract between the airfield and the town that there could be no aerobatic flying from Bad Ragaz. And
Ah,
they let me do it for several years, but once there was a guy founded it out and put it a claim in it, and then the
yeah, you had no.
story was over.
Okay.
So I needed to fly 5-10 minutes away and do the aerobatics there and coming back. And this is just bullshit because,
Yes.
Claudia was at the bottom filming it, and then, yeah, going forth, it was a nightmare. So I said, it's a good period. Let's go and do something else. And I
It's
was
it
start looking.
it's a very important comment you just said, that Claudia was filming you, and I just wanted to make a small aparté so about that topic because it's something I think personally is very connected to snowboarding, skateboarding as well, and to what we do with our plane. It's very connected to aerobatics as well. Is if you don't see yourself, so you need to film you, then it's very hard to improve yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be fair. Aerobatic flying is an amateur sport,
Yeah,
fully amateur.
yeah.
There's no professionals in there, except the Red Bull Air Race, what's a different story. But it's an amateur sport, first of all. And second of all, it was not really fair for the other people in the flying community doing aerobatic. Why? Because I was coming with 7 years of World Cup experience.
Mm.
I formed all the snowboard teams in Switzerland, freestyle competition, alpine, and everything. I was I was a trainer in the World Cup for 17 years, uh, and I know in and out how you teach somebody on a sport level. And for Claudia, who is also a teacher, and she's a physics teacher by studying. We know exactly how to train and how to make it work. So video control was key, structured training was key, and then also have a very good trainer, Sergei Boryak, who was my trainer for many years, who taught me as well. And Claudia with the video, that was a big improvement. I had inboard camera, outboard camera. I could analyze everything. So it was a huge advantage, to bring that knowledge into that competition place. That's how it was possible for me to walk through these competitions and be always on the podium.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was not the better pilot, but I was the better prepared pilot.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
And this was the game what I was playing, and I took the same approach into the stall flying and into the glacier flying, and that was the time when Hombi stepped in with an idea that we should probably buy a plane together.
Yeah.
He
Mm-hmm.
was coming away from his Piper Cup, who was started to getting to be more too expensive, and he wanted to keep on flying, and he thought about why not partner up with Roland. He has that aerobatic plane, but he is looking around, maybe is interested. And I was also looking at that time to buy me another plane. And eventually I stepped away from buying a plane together with him, first of all because I thought it's not really worth the hassle, and I knew he's going to fly a lot and I fly a lot, and we are the two guys who fly the most at the airfield. So why in the hell you want to put two
No,
guys together on one plane who
no,
fly the most on the
you don't.
airfield?
Is it's
It's
the most frustrating
yes,
constellation. Yeah, yeah, construction.
yeah. So he went on with the ultralight on his own. I was not 100% convinced, to be honest. You know, you're flying a high performance aerobatic plane,
Yeah.
putting 118 liters an hour while training through. It's 118 liters an hour. It's like 30 gallons or
Mm-hmm.
something an
That's
hour.
huge.
It's huge, but it pulls 330 horsepower. So everything is different. Approach speed, final is 90 knots. I'm happy if I fly 90 knots. And
Yeah.
that was the slowest I could safely approach. Landing time, landing distance is like on the ground, 400 meters, and every 200 landings you change the brake pads because they were worn out. It's just a completely different story. So anyway, um, then I was looking at him and he was doing this glacier stuff. And eventually I couldn't stop it anymore. I said, okay, I need one of these. We bought the Cessna 182 in the meantime when we sold the the Votec.
Yes.
And so I had the 182 together with a few other people. That was a really good buy because I was looking at all the other planes and they finally bought this one. I flew the Cirrus, the Bonanzas, and everything.
And you
But
you you were still looking at certified airplanes,
yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
so ultralights or light sports were not really
No,
yet in the
no,
scope.
no, because I wanted to go back to travel flying.
Okay.
I wanted to pack up the skis or the surfboard or the whatever and go places. And we have that little garage from a friend where we use it as a surf shack where we live in there, and it's right by the beach in North Germany on the island of Fehmarn. And I wanted something where I can go forth and back to that place or to the Atlantic coast to go surfing. And so I was looking into general aviation planes, flew the Moonies, flew everything. But at the end of the day, I bought a 182 turbo because at the end of the day, that plane just let you sit in, even after an exhaust day of windsurfing, you're tired. It does not demands a lot. It has a nice autopilot. You sit there, you control everything. It's relaxing. And even if it goes bad. And the great thing was because I had that sport machine, I didn't need the plane, like a Mooney or like a beach who is sporty. It's not sporty. It's a bloody plane to go from A to B. There's nothing
No.
sporty. You take an aerobatic plane, that's sporty. So, and then I wanted to extend, and for my 50th birthday in Friedrichshafen, I uh, I bought myself the demonstrator of the tail dragger of ICP,
The
the
one you have
Savannah
now.
Twin. Yes,
Okay.
yeah, that was the start then, and Hombi was relieved. Eventually, I'm coming to the ultralight, and he said, "Yeah, you will see, it's great and everything." I wasn't so sure about the road tax stuff and everything, but the plane was less than an overhaul of the engine of the 182 turbo. So yeah, we bought it, the two of us. The guy I had the Cessna with, because he complained I'm always away, so the plane isn't there. So I said, yeah, let's buy another one. So and then that was the beginning of a fantastic new discovery. And Claudia was always into the mountain. She said, I want to go more into the mountain, even more. And I want to see a little bit more of the Alps, not only the ski areas, because we are basically around in winter, in the winter resorts, but in the summer. So I said, okay, look, we've seen so much. We flew Idaho, we flew the back country, Canada, and so on. There's a great story about an experimental trip in north of Canada for
Okay.
another time.
Yes.
And so we decided we're gonna give it a try, and we try to do the mountains, the Alps, with the plane. And Hombi introduced us to this, and I have to say, what I discovered was amazing. Because, being a general aviation pilot in Europe, especially in Switzerland, you're absolutely great in flying around restricted airspaces. Because if you look at the Swiss map, it's
Everything
either
is.
mountain or restricted
Yes.
airspace, you know?
You have no possibilities to to fly around.
Yeah, so your mindset is completely different. When you fly Canada or Alaska or in America, it's completely different. And when I've been up with Paul Claus in Alaska and flew around his place, the next controlled airspace is like, it's like a day flying away or something like. So coming back and saying that is, I discovered with ultralight, you kind of fly below the radar. You kind of have a freedom under this huge, complex airspace of Europe.
Yep.
You just have to keep yourself out of the whole areas, and you have to know what you're doing. But then it's a, it was a freedom I never expected.
It's quite easy to do, I must say. Oh, of
Yeah,
course, if you know
yeah.
what to do, but it's quite easy
If you know what to do,
to be
yeah.
out of them.
Yeah, and especially Italy. A lot of people fear Italy
I don't
because
know
of the
why.
controllers and the
Yeah.
airspace. I don't know why. I also didn't have any problem with general aviation in it, but with ultralight, it's like heaven.
Yeah, it is.
Italy is like heaven. And also, I have to say, the glacier flying. I mean, we just have to admire. We're in the middle of Europe, millions of people around, and there is these Alps, and there are multiple glacial landing spots in the middle of one of the densest populated area on this planet.
Hmm.
And I mean, I go down to the airfield, and 25 minutes later, I'm at 3,000 meters, no cell phone reception, and you're completely off the grid. And this is absolutely fantastic. And this is what Hombi introduced me to, and what I'm just loving it these days, and looking forward every 3 minutes to do it. And yeah,
I
Really
couldn't more
fantastic.
agree. It's we're so
Yeah.
lucky. So you're in the middle of the Alps. I'm a little bit further in Germany, but still very close. I mean, I also need only like 10 minutes flight, and then I'm in the middle of the mountains. But we have a little bit more restrictions, and we cannot land on glaciers in Germany.
Hmm.
Austria is more difficult.
Yeah.
And but it's I totally agree. It's like you more or less. I have the feeling you discovered in a new world. You already really knew extremely well
Hmm.
because of your
Yes.
snowboarding and skiing activities. But
Yeah.
it's quite. I'm sure it has been fascinating to rediscover it with an airplane.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, we love taking the tent and the skis and then fly on a glacier, camp up there, do a ski tour, pack up, fly to the next glacier the next day, camp up there. And not a lot of people do it that way in Switzerland. But for us, it was like we love the Arctic. We do a lot of
Mm.
Arctic expedition, Claudia and me. So now the Arctic, kind of the Arctic, being in the cold, being exposed to the elements and everything, comes with a 30 minutes flight or with an hour's flight, and the mountains and everything. So the glaciers, it's absolutely great, and we're having a blast. We're having an absolutely blast in the moment. Yeah,
Wow,
it's really
that's
fascinating.
beautiful. So if I reckon you've been doing this now, I would say for the past 5 years, because I think or something like
Hmm.
that. We met around 2015, I would
Yeah,
say, in
yeah,
Italy, again Italy,
hmm, yeah,
and oh, that's yes.
yeah. I mean, we bought that plane. Probably it wasn't my 50th birthday. It was my birthday, but I
Oh,
just recall it's not my 50th. I'm already a little bit older. Bloody hell,
nah.
time flies by. But anyhow, yeah, I probably put about 200 hours in it
Wow.
per year now.
That's a good
In
basis because you're a really busy man. I mean, you have several companies and ski
Mhm.
schools.
Yes, yeah, but yeah, I just dedicated the time, and I knew from experience, it starts. You get the hang. I can speak for me. I get the hang of out of a plane if I come towards 400 landings and about 200 hours. Then I start really get to know the plane. Before that, it's always, yeah, let's see, and oh, ooh, discover this, and I knew I want to become confident as quick as possible because there are a lot of small incidents in glacier flying, but they are incidents in glacier flying. And I just knew I want to become very proficient pretty quick. And so I think in the first 3 weeks, I put like 500 landings on.
Wow. But you had the
You
best
know,
partner to do that with Hombi together because like
yeah,
you
he
know
was
like
not so much into training.
no,
I
okay.
did that on completely on my own.
Ah, wow.
Looking at video, talking to Paul Claus, how about training and what's important and so on. And so that was more kind of myself
So
trying to reach the limit.
can you please tell us, because I should ask somebody, so other people will ask definitely, how is the regulation if you're flying in Europe, if you're flying an ultralight, or if you're flying a general aviation aircraft on skis, what do you need to do to be allowed to land on a glacier in Switzerland, obviously?
Okay. First of all, we have to make clear Switzerland does not have an ultralight category. There is no like light sport aircraft ultralight. Let's put that together as the same thing. There isn't a pilot license. There isn't teaching of it, and they're kind of accepted in a certain way. So our planes, Hombi and mine now, is registered in France.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm flying on the ultralight license of France. So, as I have my license not in Switzerland, I have it in Austria. That becomes because I was teaching flying, a flight instructor I did in Austria just because it was the closest airfield to the home base where there was a school for instructors.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, the Austrian, they do accept ultralight hours on the PPL. Others don't. To my belief, it's the only EASA country who does.
I think
The other
yes.
might
Yeah.
follow.
Yes.
So,
We hope so.
yeah. Where are the places where you can fly on glacier? First of all, it's France, Switzerland, and Italy in some areas.
Yes. So.
Now, let's take, for instance, France. France has separated the airfields who are officially landing spots for generation aircrafts. And there are ultralight places. So you have more ultralight glacier areas where you can land than general aviation mountain airfields. So to be certified and to fly a certified aircraft into a mountain field, you need a formation and you need currency. The same for Switzerland. Switzerland, on the other hand, does not have the separation between ultralight airfields or places and normal glacier mounting landing spots. So in Switzerland, flying with a French ultralight, it's not denied in the books because the books were written before ultralight came off. So I kind of fly actually there, but I also did my PPL mountain ski license.
Ah. Okay.
So whatever, I mean, I can't fly with the PPL on the ultralight because you need an ultralight license. So that means if I fly in Switzerland, I fly with an aircraft who is not denied, but also not certified in Switzerland. But you are allowed to overfly and land in Switzerland and store it for a certain time. But you need to have a PPL license with a ski certification to be able to land fully 100% on the glacier.
Ah.
So
Okay. So a
I
guy with
think,
me, having only the German sport license of ultralights and the French license. Well, I have a glider license as well, but having only these ultralights, light sport aircraft license, officially it would be not possible for me to land with my bird on skis on a Swiss glacier.
I
Theoretically
don't know if
tricky.
officially you will get the correct answer,
Mm-hmm.
but because there isn't any written statement like this, because when the law was putting out or the regulation, there isn't any mention about that. What it is mentioned is you need to be a certified pilot. So you need to have your endorsement or your extension of the license to fly that. Now,
Okay.
you can't do that on your German ultralight license because there is nothing like a formation for mountain flying.
No.
But on the French one you can. There is the abeille de montagne. So there is like the bee of the mountain, it's translated. And this is a formation who gives you a certification from the association. So it's not from the federal office, but it's from the association who is in charge for doing it. So if you have this, you could then claim I'm formed and I'm kind of certified to fly on glaciers in the mountains. So then it would be a question of what would be the final decision on the judge if you would have a problem.
Okay. And does it apply to wheel operations as well? So I mean, there are a few
Yes.
spots
I
in.
mean,
Okay.
yeah, in Switzerland, we only have two spots where you can wheel land on the mountain.
Ah,
Okay,
okay.
it's Côte-de-Cœur and Bec de Nonda. They're very close together, and these are the only two spots where you can actually do your wheel mountain landing license in Switzerland.
Mm.
Where in France you have
Oh,
multiple altiports where you can tarmac or gravel or grass for general aviation, and also plenty of private and official ultralight places where you can go land on snow, on glacier, on gravel, grass in the mountains.
similar to
And
Italy.
Italy it's the same, but Italy is a little bit different.
Mm.
Between the license in Italy is a sport license, and the Italian government and regulation doesn't see an ultralight as an aircraft. It sees it as a leisure object like a dirt bike. So that's why in Italy you have the difference between the normal ultralight and they call it advanced ultralight. Because by regulation, you don't need a radio in an ultralight in Italy. You just need a you just need the landing light to indicate that you're going to land on that field. And that means you can fly below 500 feet anytime in the week and below 1,000 feet on the weekends, except going into CTRs or forbidden areas
Yep.
on an ultralight. And you can land whenever the landlord gives you permission to land, because it's like you driving around with a dirt bike,
Mm.
because you're not under the aviation regulation. With an ultralight avanzata, it's a different story, because there you can land also on certain, not all of it, on certain controlled airfields. And that's why you need a transponder and a radio and a radio license.
Great. I think we covered quite a lot about mountain flying. I would have another question about the landing on the glaciers. And this is something let's say I'm being a snowboarder as well, a skateboarder. Um, I'm I would like to think that my kind of snowboarding, skateboarding background is helping me to find some spots when I'm some gravel bars and riverbeds, to find some interesting places where to land, because I'm always looking for potential to spots to skateboard or to snowboard. I have the feeling that I look differently. And what do you think about that? Do you think it's could be something valid? Do you think because you have been so much in the mountains, you have so much experience also on the snow? I'm sure it helps you a lot to define if a mountain, a snow spot, or a glacier is suitable to land or not, especially on a first track. Um, and about wheel landing on a riverbed, for example, do you think it helps?
I absolutely agree on the glacier stuff, and but wheel landing, I wouldn't call it. But let's face the fact. I'm doing now my whole life. I'm doing what? Looking down from a cable car or from a chairlift into a powder field to understand where my next line is going to be. So basically, you look from above onto the ground and think, okay, I'm going to go there. Oh, the snow looks better over there. And now that looks a little bit crusty. So this experience helped me tremendous on the glacier, because for me to read the snow was not an issue.
Mm.
To read the glacier where you drive over, I once recalled it, my trainings on the glacier. I was constantly, for 11 years of my life, I was being on a glacier,
Mm.
if I take all the time together. So this is like living at 3,000 meters for day and night on on a glacier when you work and when you're 57 and you work the whole life in the winter sport areas, that's what it ends up. So
Mm.
it's an environment I know. I didn't know it by the plane, but for me, it was just putting together what snowboarding experience, being on the glacier experience, not to the level like Hombi as a mountaineer,
Mm.
but being on the glacier, seeing the crevasses, knowing the danger, know how it looks like, and reading the snow from above, from the gondola, from the chairlifts and everything. And this is just what I think is very difficult if you're a general aviation pilot, even if you're a great pilot, and there certainly are pilots more capable than me, but on the glacier, it all comes down to reading the snow. It all comes down to see how steep is that slope, and with that snow, how good my plane gonna glide, where I need to put the landing spot to be able to turn in front of that crevasse, or that steepness, how much power I need, because today now at 2 o'clock in April, I need much more power than like in January at 10 o'clock in the morning, because the snow transformed already and it's sticky or whatever it is. And this is just yeah, the environment snow is what is my environment basically. So to put the plane into an environment where you know the best, it's probably a very logic and easy step for me. So I just needed to apply the skills of approaching in it and having the right procedure and stuff like that to also make it safe in terms of doing a mountain landing on a glacier. So, but this did help tremendously. But I feel a big lack when I'm landing on wheels in riverbeds or mountain fields, or like last year, we've been 5.5 weeks in Iceland with the planes, Hombi and me, and we did hundreds of landing
Mm.
off piste and only off piste. And I had big learning curve there because it's completely different,
Yeah.
different
I'm
way.
so I could say I would dream of making a Hombi special with you, especially about that trip you did last year in Iceland with him, because it will
Hmm.
interest definitely. I want to know what happened personally, definitely, and I'm sure so many people would like to know, how did you pack the planes? How did you
Yeah,
ship them to Iceland? There's a very cool video
yeah,
on your YouTube channel to see that, because you ship them in a container. Uh,
mm,
and about the flying over there, it would be huge to do that together, and I would love to
yeah,
do that.
yeah, especially. And
Mm.
we barely covered it. It's more a little bit
Yes.
my story, but we barely covered the whole thing with flying the glaciers with Humvee and that stuff. This is a whole lot of difference, when you're around with a guy with that experience. Yeah, I mean, quite experienced in snow sports, but being on an alpinism is not my major goal. I do it a little bit, but not to the extent Hombi did it. And this is all the trips to the Mont Blanc area and all this stuff, and overnighting in the huts and stuff. This is just fantastic, and yeah,
Yeah,
and
alpinism
especially
was.
also yeah.
Yeah. So we are touching the end of our podcast, but I would like to make let's say a small questionnaire, quick questions. So the float guys, they say splash and dash when they test the water and fly again, take off
Hmm.
again. So I like stall or backcountry. I would say kind of bolter because the Navy guys when they land on an aircraft carrier they make a boulder and they fly again. So we touch the ground or touch the gravel bar or touch the snow to check how it is and when it's possible. Of course, on a glacier upwards, it might be sometimes quite difficult to do that. Um, so tail dragger or nose dragger
For what?
for an airplane?
For an airplane. Okay, I bought a tail dragger because of the reason if you want to land on a glacier, there is no way you can do that with a nose dragger. You can do it, but then you're very limited to the places you can go. Uh, Beside that, I would say if you skip the glacier, there are planes like the Savannah from ECP or also the Zenith stall. And if you look at this, the capabilities of these planes are not away from a tail dragger, not very far. But I think a lot of people don't understand one thing. In life and in this situation, you need to make it as easy as possible. You need to give your abilities the most support you can give. And the nose wheel aircraft, tricycle gear, will definitely give you a huge advantage because the landing gonna be much easier if you have the right plane. I mean, we're not talking about taking a plane who has not a sturdy nose wheel into a river bar with big blocks. But let's face the fact: you can take a Savannah or a Fenit stall, put some big wheels on it, like 29ers or 26er, and have a big nose fork and land it nicely on the main wheels. At the end of the day, I would say you're going to have less trouble, you're going to have more fun, and you need less experience to become a safe operation than when you put the tail dragger in the same situation. Because look, just by physics, by by bare physics, the tail dragger has its advantages, uh, but it also has a big disadvantage. The center of gravity is behind the main wheels,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever you speak to a tail dragger pilot, where's the problem? It's a tail wheel, always, all the time. It's the tail wheel is the part of the tail wheel plane who makes the most troubles. But there are operation and there is areas where you can't operate a nose wheel craft, especially on steep glacier parts, especially on difficult riverbeds. But if I would recommend it to somebody who's not going on a glacier or landing on just frozen surfaces or lake, I would have to say safety is primarily the case in aviation. If you look differently on a different aspect and you put safety not in the first place, I think you're gonna go and having trouble a day earlier or later. So for me, I would say if you don't need the end possibility of a tail dragger, you're better off with a nose gear plane.
Oh, pretty wise choice. I totally agree with your arguments. Um, there's the
It's
personal.
not as cool.
Well,
I love the tail
yeah.
draggers, and it's way cool. I think there are planes that are looking much better as a tail dragger, and I mean, Cessna 180 on nice bush wheels and
uh,
stuff. It's a beauty in the
yeah.
world. Uh, but let's face the fact, yeah, if it's not super rough and super difficult, are you really need it? And are you competent enough to fly it as safe as you would a nose wheeler. And I think for most of the pilots,
Mm.
the tail dragger is still a big challenge.
If you don't fly enough, yes.
Yeah, yeah. You
If
need
you
to fly a tail dragger much more than a nose wheel plane.
and train with it a lot. I mean, it's
Yes,
always the question, how do you fly? But
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
so that one, the next one is tricky. What's you flew a lot of planes, so I'm going to
Hmm.
ask what your favorite plane is or was. I think it's gonna be difficult to answer. But do you have a favorite coming over the top of
Absolutely,
all the ones you had?
absolutely. Yeah, I have favorite planes. So if you fly the transatlantic, you put two turbines there, and that for me is a King Air because
Mm-hmm.
you can stuff a lot of things and you can go. So that would be the dream plane for me. If I could wish, I would like to have a hangar with a King Air 90 or a King Air 200. Then I would like to have my beloved Wotec back for aerobatics or some pits for having fun. Then I would like to travel. I would probably go with a 182 turbo I have. Probably not. I would probably take a 206. And for stall flying, yeah, I would probably stick to the Savannah I have in the
Mm-hmm.
moment. So you see, I'm a pretty lucky guy to be
Yeah.
flying all these airplanes at some occasions, and yeah, I just would love to put them all together in a hangar. But you, Maxim, have to pay the fuel bills.
Ooh, then you will fly even less than that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, great, great. So,
But I think when I get older, I would limit myself to an ultralight.
okay.
And then it definitely be a tail dragger ultralight and an ultralight who has a little bit more speed as the
Mm-hmm.
one I have now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and to be able to do both landing on glaciers, landing on mountain airfields, but also cruise a little bit faster,
Mm-hmm.
to go places. Because now I still have the Cessna where I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But once found's getting tighter, yeah, you need to start doing compromise.
Mm.
Every plane is a compromise.
Totally. That's yeah. It's always
Yeah,
the case.
yeah, yeah. And the best is try not to buy a plane with too many compromise. Go for the fully aerobatic, unlimited airplane. Go for the fully stall plane, and go for a great travel machine. And so this is, I think, you just have to choose. If you try to match everything, you're never going to be happy on either of these areas, except probably the 180,
Mm.
who does pretty much, or the
Everything.
180, yeah,
Mm.
who does pretty much everything except aerobatics.
Mm.
Yeah,
And
it's
probably one of the most beautiful GA airplane ever produced. Well, personal taste.
Yeah, I think if you ask a Mooney pilot,
He would say.
and I flew Moonies, I have to say, Mooney in the air, it's probably a more sleeker and a more nicer looking aircraft than
Mm,
182 or 185. But
mm,
yeah, it's just has it proposed, and I think it's still one of the most fascinated aircraft ever being built, together with the Viking Balancas, probably,
mhm.
who are also absolutely stunning planes. Uh, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Roland, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I think we barely scratched the surface of the snow,
Yes, yes.
and as I already said, I hope we'll have the possibility to make another one. I'm sure we do,
Sure.
and I also really hope we will meet again for a trip together because this is something we've not done yet, really, except meeting
No,
in Italy.
different
But
locations. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
and if I recall the trip I had with Hombi around Great Britain in 2017, then I would love to do something similar with you in another country that I'm sure we would enjoy it pretty much.
Sure.
So we should do that.
Definitely should. Yeah.
Awesome. Roland, then big cheers to Claudia from me.
I will do so.
Wish you a nice evening, and we keep in touch. And that's a show for today, folks. What a first episode! Thanks to Roland for sharing his stories and giving me a reason to plan our next trip together. You can follow him on Instagram at Primus Roland and watch his amazing glacier landing videos on YouTube at Roland Primus. Now it's time to share this podcast. Tell a friend and review on whatever platform you're listening. Thanks to those who do and will. Folks, in the next episode, we'll be back in South Bavaria with another legend of our European ultralight stall community, Mr. Tom Huber, who has been the German Lean Aviation Savage dealer for the past 15 years. A true backcountry aviation enthusiast who started flying in British Columbia, provided air support in North Africa during Rally Red racing events, literally started the stall community in Germany and around, and fell in love with his wife for this fascinating country which is Alaska. Until next time everyone, thanks for joining the Stall Collective.